Hello and welcome to today's Tech Talk on the Vroom Premium API on Nextmv, managing and testing vehicle routes with an interactive UI. My name is Haley, and I'm part of the Nextmv team supporting today's event, which features Nicole Misek, VP of Solutions Engineering at Nextmv, and Julien Coupey, Director of R&D at Verso. We're going to hear more and see more from both of them in just a moment. But to get us started, our agenda for today is going to include a quick primer and introduction to Nextmv and Verso. You're then going to see it in action with a speed run where Nicole will walk us through these two technologies together. And then we're saving time for Q&A at the end where you can ask your questions. So on that note, today's session is meant to incorporate your questions. If you have any feedback or notes for us, feel free to drop them into the chat off to the side. Just be mindful of that everyone versus host and panelist toggle to make sure that your question or comment goes to the right place. There's also the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen that we'll be keeping an eye on as well. So I'm going to kick us off with a high-level overview of Nextmv, which is an integrated decision ops platform that provides the observability, experimentation, orchestration, and collaboration capabilities on top of your decision systems, such as the Vroom Premium API. So this includes knowing who did what when, with what input and output, performing tests to pressure test your models to reduce rollout risk and build confidence. This also includes building out robust decision workflows that integrate into your broader decision technology stack, and then also providing the sharing and collaboration features to get decision model value into the hands of stakeholders faster. Now, when you bring Vroom Premium API and Nextmv together, you get the Vroom-based routing API that has all the commercial support and goodness that Julien is going to speak to here in just a moment. It's an API to API connection that hooks into Nextmv's decision ops capabilities, which helps you visualize routes on an interactive map, monitor run history and clone runs for troubleshooting, compare runs, and perform what-if scenario tests. And these are all things that Nicole is going to highlight and give us a tour of here in just a moment. But before we dive into that, I'm going to hand it over to Julien to help answer what is Verso. Julien?
Yeah, thank you. So as you mentioned, Vroom is the open source software we developed for vehicle routing problems, and Verso is the company we created around. So it serves as a framework to run the development. Our expertise is optimization, obviously, and we design and implement the whole solving strategy that is under the hood for Vroom. And to fund our work on the open source project, we have an open source business model. So basically, we provide a commercial service that is based in Vroom that we brand as Vroom Premium. The benefits of using this service over, for example, a hosted open source version is that you use the optimization as a service. So you have everything out of the box without bothering about updates, maintenance, and so on. Also, because we wrote the whole software, we're in the best position to deploy it at scale. So that's what we do for all our clients. So you should expect better results from our API, both in terms of scaling, like computing times, and also solution quality. We also have specific tunings for different use cases and so on. And of course, one reason why some open source users turn to us is that they want someone responsible for the optimization part, if it's a core asset for their workflow. So we provide support, and it goes beyond support because we often provide consultancy around modeling, because it's important that you're able to translate the business requirements and specifications into the optimization model to make sure you get solutions that match the actual workflow you expect. And last point is that we have improved routing profiles. So there's a specific work around providing different profiles, whether you want to optimize for cars, trucks, or bicycles. And also one important thing, so this is not directly related to optimization, but it helps to get more robust solutions and more realistic plans. We improve the travel time estimates. So what you get from OpenStreetMap Waze is not only based on the type of road you're driving on, it's based on the context. So a given road will have a different speed assigned if you're in a rural rural area or if you're in the suburbs or in a very dense city.
Excellent. Thank you for that high-level overview. I have more questions for you that we'll tee up towards the end here, but we're going to hand it over to Nicole to give us a rundown and demo of these two technologies in action. So I'm going to stop sharing so that Nicole, you can
Haley
and
and Julien.
That is us together.
That was a combined name. All right, so I am in the Nextmv console right now, and I am in the marketplace section of the console. And so what you're seeing here is a suite of pre-built applications that solve a specific business problem. And if you subscribe to these applications, you can use them out of the box by just conforming to the input schema that they expect. And so what we're going to be focused on today is this particular marketplace application, the Vroom Premium Routing API. So if I click in here, what I'm seeing is a list of kind of all the available constraints available to us via the Vroom Premium API. So as mentioned before, this is an API to API integration, and this application is essentially leveraging the Vroom Premium API to make the optimization request. So to make use of this application, you can click on Clone App, and then you can give this a name like the Vroom Premium app, and you can give it a description if you'd like. You can add reference links, for example, here, and then you can also see that this application is tied to that underlying marketplace subscription for the Vroom Premium API. So to initially create this app, you can click Create App. I have already done that, so I'm actually going to navigate to an application that I have already subscribed to here called the Vroom Premium API. And the very first thing that you would do, so when you first subscribe to this application, it's going to look empty in this view because you haven't taken any action yet. However, I have done quite a bit in this application already, so you can see I have recent runs, and I can look at metrics over time and things like that. But the very first thing that you're going to do once you subscribe to that application is to click into Secrets. And part of the reason that I have already done this prior to the talk is that I needed to configure my Vroom API key here. But I just want to go through the motions to show you how you will do that. So if you are already a Vroom Premium user, you would click the plus sign here, and you can give this collection a name like Vroom Secret. You can give it a description. And then under secrets, you can select from either an ENV or a file-based secret. We're going to go with an ENV, and you'll specify the environment variable Vroom API key, and you would paste in your API key here. So I'm not going to do that because I've already done this prior to the call. So I will jump back over here to my Runs tab. And so the best way to kind of get started with this subscription application is to just go right into creating a new run. You can click on this plus sign here, and this will lead you to a form where you can create a run by either browsing files for input. You can also click on the Input tab, and we've distributed a sample input with this marketplace application, so you can click Load that sample input, and then that will populate a simple sample input for the Vroom Premium API. So what we've got here is a list of jobs and vehicles, which is what the Vroom Premium API expects. The jobs here are have an ID, a description, a location, and a delivery quantity. And the vehicles here have an ID, a start and end location, and a capacity for the vehicles. So this is a fairly simple input here, the people at Verso have done a really good job with creating a ton of API documentation to capture all of the available features that are available for use. And so many other features are available that are not captured in this sample input. But we can go ahead and run this one by clicking Start Run. And you can see that we went from queued status to running, and soon this will jump to succeeded, which means the API to API call has completed. And so now that my run succeeded, we can see that we have these metrics that are populated here. These are metrics that we surfaced as a summary, essentially, of the Vroom Premium routing output. So you can see here things like the number of unassigned stops, the number of routes, the objective value, which in this case is the same as the cost, any waiting time, and kind of just some helpful business KPIs to summarize that solution. Now, for any past run, you can always get the input and output for that run. So you can see here, this was my input that I ran with for reproducibility. This is my output. And so the output solution from the Vroom Premium API is essentially a list of routes with the corresponding steps of stops within each of those routes. We can also see that nice map view of the routes that were selected as part of the optimization. Additionally, you get any metadata, including kind of the underlying version that was used to run this particular run. And you also get logs, which in this case, we're showing kind of the actual API logs from making that API call. So that is one really simple run to kind of get started. But now let's say we want to make a change. We can go click this plus sign here and click clone run. And then we can go into our input tab and we can click use edited input for run. And we can do something like, for example, change the capacity from 40 to 30. And then we can start that run. And so that's nice about cloning run is it kind of pre-populates a past run and you can manipulate that past run and look at results there. And again, you can kind of see all of the output views that you want to see. So that is really that's the marketplace application that is essentially our integration with Vroom Premium API. Now, what I want to do is kind of take one level up. So I'm going to navigate back to my apps and workflows here. And so what you're seeing is, and apologies, my account is a little bit messy with all of the applications that I work on, but really what you're seeing here is a list of applications. Some are labeled as subscription, like what we just were in. These are marketplace subscription applications, those pre-built applications that are kind of no code, you're just interacting with the input. We also have custom applications, which are users, bringing their own code to the table and pushing that up as an application. And we have workflow applications. And so what I want to do is click into this Vroom workflow here. And so the easiest way to kind of explain what we're looking at with the workflow is to go into a run. So I'm in a run right now of the workflow, and workflow applications are special in that they have one additional tab called the flow tab. And really what a workflow is doing is it's a collection of steps, and some of those steps can be actually making runs of other applications in Nextmv. So this is a workflow application that I created around the Vroom Premium Marketplace application. And what this workflow does is it loads kind of domain-specific stop data and vehicle type data in CSV form. And then it goes in and manipulates that data to create the jobs and the vehicles that the Vroom Premium API expects. And then it combines those results in those jobs and vehicles into the optimization input, and then it sends that request to the Vroom API marketplace application, which sends to the Vroom Premium API. And then we get those results back and we enhance them with custom metrics and a visualization. So that is what this workflow is doing. And now I'm going to jump into the input tab for a second and click on the table view here so we can see kind of what my input looks like. So what you're seeing here is a list of orders. And these orders have pickup locations, drop-off locations, pickup windows, drop-off windows, and loading and unloading times, weight, and volume. So this is kind of a typical, what you would typically see for someone who's running a route optimization is they have kind of this business specific data that they want to then manipulate and send into the optimization engine that they're using. So we also have vehicle type data here. This is a list of the 3 vehicle types that we want to explore using. We have compact vans, standard cargo vans, and heavy duty vans, going from least expensive to most expensive price per hour. They also have differences in the capacities that they can hold, with heavy duty vans obviously holding the most. They have start and end locations, start times, and speeds. So again, what we're doing is we're taking this kind of business specific CSV data and we're manipulating it into the input that the Vroom Premium API expects. And so once we do that, we run this workflow, we get an output. And that output in this case, I've left as the raw output from the Vroom Premium API, which is a JSON that we talked about before. But since we're doing this in a workflow application, this output could be whatever is needed. So for example, if this result was going to be consumed by humans or operators, maybe you'd want to return this in kind of a tabular view of some kind. Additionally, we have logs about the workflow execution, kind of you can see where in the process the workflow is. And we've also exposed some nice visuals here about the solution. So in this case, we've exposed a fleet summary showing the breakdown of kind of which and how many of each vehicle type we're using in the solution. And so in this case, we're using 1 standard cargo van and 1 compact van. We also have a vehicle utilization tab, which shows of the vehicles that were selected to be used, how much of their shift is actually being utilized. So now if I go ahead and clone this run, I can give this a name. So I actually want to explore a different mix of fleet types. So let me say, what if I had all heavy duty vans? So I'm going to go down here to my options, and I can see that I have these options available to me, including the number of vehicles to create across all the vehicle types and the distribution of those vehicle types to apply to that top level number of vehicles. So since I want to explore all heavy duty vans, I'm going to pull my slider bars for compact and standard down to 0, and I'm going to bump up heavy duty to 100%. So these configuration options are available to the developer of the workflow application. So essentially you can just define these as configuration for your application. And when you push them up, they will show up in the Nextmv console here with kind of the UI experience that you select, which in this case, I had an input box and some slider bars that I wanted for the user experience. So we can go ahead and fire off this run. And when that completes, we'll get our solution, which covers the experience if we had exclusively heavy duty vans. And we'll be able to kind of compare the metrics of this solution with the mixed fleet solution that we had before. So that should just be another moment. And we should be able to see where we are in the process. Okay. Okay, so now we're in the solve step here, and that just takes a couple of seconds. And we should see our visuals populate in a moment. All right, so we've got our visuals here as well. So let me go back to my runs view and refresh this page. So now let's compare those two runs. So we had our mixed fleet run down here, and we have our all heavy duty up here. So we can click compare runs. And now we get this nice side-by-side view of those metrics. And we can see right off the bat, okay, let's look at cost. All heavy duty had a much higher cost than the mixed fleet as expected, because we saw that heavy duty was much more expensive per hour. We can also see that if we look at distance, for example, the distance traveled for all heavy duty is less than the distance traveled for the mixed fleet. And that kind of makes sense because heavy duty could carry more capacity within it. So it, could be more efficient with its driving. So we can also click into assets and look at the visual assets side by side. And as expected, all heavy duty uses all heavy duty, and the mixed fleet uses a combination of different fleet types. We can also click in here and kind of look at vehicle utilization and make comparisons of that plot as well. So that is where I will stop the demo for now, and I'm going to actually turn it back over to you, Haley.
Perfect. And I'll have Julien return as well. So appreciate the demo there, Nicole. You covered a lot of ground as far as getting started and then going all the way to comparing two Vroom Premium API runs side by side with a visual there, which is really nice. So I'd like to kind of kick us off with the Q&A portion here, to take a step back and Julien, hear a bit more from you to build off of what you shared initially of how Vroom as an open source project came to be and kind of how that morphed into more of a commercial offering.
Yeah, sure. So when I started Vroom some 10 years ago, I was working in a research project. So with the co-founders of Verso. So we had an existing implementation to solve this kind of problems, but it was kind of limited. And we got to the point where we thought that scaling and efficiency in computing was key for real life use. So actually, Vroom started as a proof of concept for this. First, we implemented something just to solve the traveling salesman problem, it's already a hard problem, but it's the simplest version with just one vehicle and no other constraint, just going through all the points. And we achieved good efficiency, like we had solutions very fast and they were great in quality, like really good enough for real life use. So we built on this. Vroom started to get some traction. It was not yet usable in production because we had a lot of new features to add to be realistically usable. But at the same time, we kind of created the company because anyway, we knew that we wanted to switch from the academic context to a more commercial approach to keep on working on this kind of problem and also meet requirements from early customers we had. So all the pieces fit together nicely at that time.
So how are you seeing people, can you speak to the different types of routing use cases that you're seeing people use the Vroom Premium API for in the real world, and maybe speak to some of the challenges of solving that type of problem in the real world versus, maybe doing an independent research project?
So about the use cases, actually, we see a surprisingly vast set of different setups. Our first intent was to work with logistics companies because that's the obvious way. But it turns out that we have a lot of people doing technician routings, home services, or maintenance routes. That's a fair share of our customer base. So the use case is a bit different. but it's still the same kind of problem you want to solve with sometimes with variance in the model. And also we do have users in the mobility space. So recently we have taxi fleets optimizing their routes for on-demand transports. So obviously it's different when you're transporting people than if you're transporting parcels. But yeah, so the challenge here is that we want to have something that is generic enough in terms of features and software to be generic enough to serve all those use cases. And yeah, I'm not sure if that answers completely your question.
It does. It does. And actually, I'm going to pull in a question that I think that I saw come in through the chat for both of you. But Julien, I'd like to start with you around, as people are thinking about adopting a route optimization solution, what it like into their, broader technology stack or operations. And they don't have that type of capability today, at least in the way that we're talking about it with, true optimization or routing engine. What pieces of advice or considerations come to mind for you, Julien, as people like think about incorporating that type of capability into their tech stack? Like, do you have a top 2 or 3 tips that you would share with them?
Yeah, first of all, in terms, if you assume that people are starting from pen and paper, first of all, they need to get all the required data for this. It seems obvious, but if you don't have geocoding properly fixed, then it's no use to start optimizing. And then in terms of how to approach the problem, usually my advice is to start simple, like try to come up with the simplest model for your operations. Start solving problems and see what's wrong with the solution shape and iterate on this. The interesting part about this is that you start with a very flexible model, so you get the best possible solution at first. And then you gradually introduce some constraints that match requirements that were maybe not previously formulated or specified.
Good tips. Nicole, I know you've
Yeah.
seen much and done much in the routing space as well. I'm curious how that
Yeah.
aligns.
I mean, I was head nodding along. I completely agree with what Julien said. Like the starting simple and adding the constraints is really great because often you find that constraints that you thought might have been hard constraints actually aren't hard constraints. And, for example, things like having time windows, maybe you're flexible on those. Maybe they can go a little bit later sometimes if they're valuable, if the solution improves enough. So another thing that I was thinking about is kind of crawl, walk, run with getting this fully automated in your system. So if you are starting pen and paper, to Julien's point, like don't just flip over to automated and expect everybody to just completely buy into that. Like kind of building buy-in from the humans that are responsible for making the decision is super helpful because there might be reasons that some of these choices are being made. And so, getting that buy-in and slowly incrementing to automation and most companies aren't fully automated anyway. There's always some sort of manual override process that's happening. So just being mindful of that.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, I would, if you allow me, I would speak on that because we really try to allow this kind of workflow where you have some operator that gets a suggestion from the optimization, but usually they get the ability to change things because for some reason they may want to move jobs around earlier or whatever. So we actually have another endpoint in our API, which is called the plan, aside from the solving endpoint. And this allows to reevaluate all ETAs if you have just modified an existing solution, or if you have a manual solution, and it also provides feedback on potential violations. So in that case, you can actually modify the solution for any reason and make a wise choice with real insights.
That's super helpful, kind of providing that feedback to this is the impact of that decision that you made to change the solution. Yeah.
All right, we're just slightly over time, but I do want to end with one last question for you, Julien. Specifically around, your tips for getting started in the Vroom ecosystem. Obviously there's the open source path. Can you kind of speak to recommendations for folks that might be curious about getting started with Vroom and how that might progress into the Vroom Premium API ecosystem?
You mean in terms of getting started with the project?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. I mentioned we work on the core engine, but we do have contributions. So there's a lot of tooling around the project. So you can use a Docker image, for example. So we have users that contributed Python bindings. So there are different ways you can use. We actually have a front end, a small front end that you can deploy. So you can. It's fairly easy to set it up on a small machine and try it out.
Perfect. Like you said, like you both said, start small and then get fancy a little bit later. Excellent. All right. Well, we're just over time, so I'm going to actually end us here today. Nicole, Julien, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for everybody joining today, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks.